Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to Wix Wiz. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a fan request, one of our subscribers who has commented on several videos asking to learn more about the Wix pricing plans and how to customize them with code. If you're not familiar with Wix pricing plans, it's a way that you can offer subscriptions, among other things, to your users on your website. And we're going to learn how to completely customize the layout using Wix elements and code, and even how to use a third-party provider or offline payments to pay for your Wix subscriptions. This is a great opportunity for me to say thanks to all the people who leave feedback and comments on the videos. I love to hear your questions and your video suggestions. Unfortunately, I can't help every single very personalized question, but I do try to create videos which I feel will appeal to the broadest audience and help the most people. In order to facilitate that goal, I am going to be creating a new tool which will allow you to suggest and vote on different video topics. And either there will be a link in the video below, or it will be coming up very soon in the links below my future videos. So definitely take a look at the description to learn more about that. So if you want to learn more about pricing plans and how to customize them on Wix, let's get started. So before we get started customizing and writing any kind of code, first we're going to need to install the plain paid plans app on our Wix website. So I'm going to go over here to the app market, and I'm just going to be searching for, let's look for paid plans, and let's see what comes up in terms of the Wix plans. So we have here Wix pricing plans, and I'm going to go ahead and hit that and then add to site. And this is going to install some pages on our site and on the back end of our site. So this first part of the video, I'm just going to walk through what those pages are and what you might even want to customize in terms of your pricing plans. So I'm good to go. That's great. I wish this bubble would close so we can actually get started making edits. Excellent. So if we take a look here now at our website, then you'll see that we have a few pages that have been added to our site. So first of all, we have some member pages that have been added. So the member app has been automatically installed on our site in order to install the plans and pricing page and app. And here we see the default page that we get where we can choose your pricing plan. And this is, a standard Wix app layout. And if you click on it, then you can go into settings and you can change some things in terms of design. So if we go over here, I can change, the border, the benefits. There's a lot that you can change here, but you're still going to be somewhat limited in terms of, what you can customize, how you can display your pricing plans, and really, if you want to give yourself kind of full flexibility in terms of customization, then you're going to want to use Wix Code, and I'm going to be demonstrating later on in this video a specific application in which you might want to use Wix Code that I thought of, but I'm sure you have your own reasons for wanting to use Wix Code, possibly even beyond the design factor. So in order to get started, what I've done is, first of all, I've installed the paid pricing, what's it called? Pricing plans app, paid pricing plans app, whatever it was called. And I've also added a blank page here where I'm going to be creating my own pricing plans. And I'm going to be doing that using Wix Code. And right over here, I have the Velo reference open. So we're going to be using these two parts of the reference, the Wix pricing plans and the Wix plans backend. And this is actually a great point in time to be customizing your Wix pricing plans because Wix has just announced, this is the Wix, the Velo release notes, so different updates about Velo and the Velo APIs can be read here. And we see end of life Wix paid plans and Wix paid plans backend. So this is the old API for the Wix paid plans. And they've been around for a while, kind of parallel to the new ones that we're going to be using today. But Wix has just announced that these are going away. The code will still work, but they're not really leaving the documentation in there, which is a strong sign that you should be using the new API if you are going to be building this out on your site anytime in the near future. So let's get started by taking a look at the documentation and seeing what the instructions say. All of the Velo API documentation comes with a very important part, which is the introduction, where they kind of explain a typical use case for the API and how you would want to go ahead setting it up on your site. So first, they say that we're going to need to accept payments. So obviously this is not going to work fully in this demonstration because I'm using a free Wix site. If you want to use pricing plans, you're going to have to upgrade to a premium plan and accept payments on your site. You can still write out all the code and build everything out. You just won't be able to get to that point where you can actually accept a payment. And then we have to set up the pricing plans and define the plans. So you can define the plans either using your dashboard or using the pricing plans API. So there's two levels to this API. One could be just to display the pricing plans that you've set up on your dashboard in a nice manner, or you can actually also use the Wix pricing plans backend to actually create new plans, and we're going to be demonstrating both of these things. So here is the kind of typical life cycle of creating an order with pricing plans. So the first thing that they instruct us to do is to get and display a list of membership plans from one of the following. So either a data set connected to the plans collection or a query on the plans collection. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with querying our plans collection in order to actually get the plans. And the plans that we have at the moment will just be the default plans that came with the installed app. So in order to do that, we are going to need to use the Wix pricing plans backend. And we have some information here about the plans collection field. And these are instructions about how to query that collection. And if I run a query on that collection, I should get back all of the plans in that collection. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my site and head into dev mode. If you haven't done that already, you're going to need to do that to use Velo code on your site. Once you have turned dev mode on, you'll see all this added Nash here. We have our editor, code editor here on the bottom. And what we're going to start with is our public and backend files. You can see by the naming that some of the code is meant to be implemented on the front end and some is meant to be implemented on the back end. So typically whatever will be inside of the back end named part of the API is what has to go into the back end. And we have lots of Wix APIs that are built in this dual manner. So we have the front end part and the back end. And we're starting here with the back end, and we're going to be querying the paid plans collection. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this code. And then I'm going to add a web module to the back end. And I'm going to call it plans. You can call it whatever you like. That's just the name I made up at this very moment. And I'm going to delete all of the boilerplate code that comes right over here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so hopefully you can see a little better what I'm doing here. And I'm going to paste the code that we just copied over from the API. Obviously, we're going to need to add a little more so this actually works. So let's deal with this all one by one. Oops, actually realize I just copied this into the front end plans page and not into this page right here, which I wanted to. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that right there. And I'm going to be creating a wrapper function in order to actually execute this query. So I'm going to say const get plans, and this is going to be an asynchronous function. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to query for the paid plans. You can see here that the Wix documentation tends to use .then. I personally prefer using async await, and that's why I'm going to say here const results is equal to await Wix data query. Okay, and then we can get rid of this dot then that comes right over here, and our results should be stored within this variable right over here. We need to import Wix data. We can see that that's missing. So import Wix data. And now what we can do here is return results. And I'm going to say .items. Okay, so that should return the plans, if I'm not mistaken. And this I'm going to export, and that will allow me to just run this function here in the backend without needing to go into preview mode or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and click run. And it was returned with an array of 0. Okay, so that is not what I expected at all. So let's try and see why this is. So one thing that I think might have happened is that I added the plans app. I didn't publish my site. So it could be that these default plans that came with the site are not really counted yet if I haven't published my site. Oh, yeah, okay, there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit publish. And I'm also going to go and view the site. And I think this is called plans, pricing plans. Let's see, pricing plans. Okay, what is this page called on our site? Let's see, plans, maybe plans and pricing. Go here into SEO basics, plans pricing. Okay, I got it backwards. Go ahead and check it out. Plans pricing. Okay, no plans available. So I guess those default plans don't show as soon as you publish your site. They're just kind of something that Wix puts in the app so that you can see as if you had plans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my dashboard, and I'm going to hit refresh because I opened this dashboard before installing the plans and pricing app. And now you'll see here that I have this pricing plans tab over here where we can add new plans. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click Start Now, and I'm going to create a plan. And I'm just going to call this Test 1. And this is going to be recurring payments, and let's say 100. And I am going to, yeah, I see it's in shekel because I'm actually in Israel now. But I'm going to go ahead and click Save. No, length of plan, months. So we have one plan, and let's just create one more test plan. So test 2. And I am going to save. Well, I need to give it a price, 50. Excellent. So now I have 2 plans set up, and I'm going to go back to our site, go back to the backend file, and I'm going to run that query again. So I'm going to go ahead and click Run. And this time it was returned with an array with 2 plans. Okay, and here you can see all of this nice information about our plans. So we have the tagline, the test. We have, everything that I could have possibly set up in the backend, we have here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this information in the front end of my website. And the way that I'm going to do that is by importing this get plans function from backend/plans. Okay, and then here I can create another function, const load plans equals async, and then I'm going to say const plans equals await get plans. Okay, so this will get our plans from the backend, and now I'm going to want to display these plans in some way on my site. And the best way to deal with data like this would be, of course, as a repeater. So I'm going to go here to plans, and this is an empty page, and I'm just going to add layout tools, repeaters. I'm just going to add a plain repeater like this. Drag it down a little bit. And I'm going to add a title. So I'm going to add, let's add text. I'm just going to add heading 6, let's say. And I'm going to call this plan title. Make it look all pretty. So I'm not going to be focusing a lot on design in this tutorial, but I'm just showing you that you can design this whole thing using regular Wix elements, which means that if you're good at design, then you should be able to do pretty much anything you want here in terms of how you display the plans. You don't even have to use a repeater if you don't want to. I just think that that is probably what most people would default to do if you're displaying kind of a list of data like this, an array that we got back from the plans collection. I'm going to add pricing. Right here, add price. Add right here in the middle. And for each one, I'm going to add a button, which will be in order to allow us to purchase the plan. Go right over here. Whoops. Select that button, make it a little thinner, put it in the middle, and change the text to buy now. Even though subscribe now would probably be better, but just to give kind of an idea of what's going on here. Okay, so now we want to actually take this data and pass it to our repeater. So in order to do that, we are going to, whoops, I think I added the code to the wrong page again. My bad. Okay, so going back to plans and pricing. I'm going to open my code panel. And I'm going to just copy all this code here, which I accidentally put here, and put it over here on our plans page, which is our custom page that we built out. And let's just zoom out a little bit so I can close this panel and zoom right. Excellent. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually display this data in our repeater. In order to do that, we're going to need to give our repeater some names. So I'm going to open up the properties and event panel here, and I'm going to call this plans repeater. And this I'm going to call plan title. And this I'm going to call plan price. And this I'm going to call buy now button. Obviously, these names, you can choose whatever you want. Just try and pick something that's indicative of what the thing actually is so that you'll remember it when you're looking at your code again in 20 years. That's the main goal of these things. And yeah, so now we need to know what data we're actually going to be passing in. And in order to know that, we can take a look at the array that we got here in the backend. And what I like to do here is, for example, just go ahead and copy JSON from one of these objects in the array, and then head back to our plan page on the front end. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this object here, commented out on top, so I can see, what the data points that I get back are, so that I can send them into our repeater. So let's go ahead and set up the onItemReady for the repeater. So I'm going to select the repeater element, and then onItemReady, onItemReady, and then here we're going to have a callback function, and this has a parameter of item and item data. And then for each item, I can kind of define what the values will be. So here we have our plan title, and we're going to have our plan price initially. And the next stage will be setting up the buy now button. So here we're going to have plan price. Okay, so the text of each one of these will be determined by our item data. And now we just need to see which exact property we need to use. So for the title, we're going to just use name. And in retrospect, maybe I would have called this name instead of title, plan name. If I had realized that that's what it's called here in the data, just to kind of keep things aligned. And in terms of price, I have here 100, and currency I have over here. Unfortunately, there's no, it doesn't seem like there is a formatted price, which we have, for example, in Wix stores, which is just one value with both the price and the currency. So I'm going to need to grab each one and kind of display it. So what I could do here is just say item data. I kind of default to template literal, these kind of things. So I'm just going to grab that item data dot price, and let's say space item data dot currency. And notice that these ticks here, these are back ticks. So don't get confused between this and this. Okay, back ticks are what we use for template literal. Regular ticks is just to define a string, which is pretty much the same as this. I've noticed that some other people commenting have been getting confused with those kind of things. Okay, so then we need to load our plans, and then we need to just pass this plans data to the plans repeater. So I'm going to go ahead and select our repeater. So plans repeater, and then dot data, sorry, blank there for a second, is equal to plans. Okay, so that will set the plans repeater data to be the plans that we got from the backend. And then last but not least, load our plans. Okay, and now I'm going to preview our site. And you can see here that we have our two lovely plans, test 1 and test 2, and we have the prices, and we have the buy now button, which isn't really doing anything at the moment. So let's head back to the documentation. And I'm going to go back to the introduction that we were reading right over here and to our life cycle. And then they would select the plan. So we're up to number 2 over here. Select the membership plan by clicking the plan or a button. And if they're not logged in, then the sign up page will be displayed. And then we want to call something called Start Online Purchase. And this is going to, as it says here, handle all stages of buying the plan. So let's go here over to orders. Sorry, checkout, my bad. And we're going to use this Start Online Purchase function. Okay, so when the order button is clicked, then we are going to checkout.startonlinepurchase with a plan ID. Okay, and then we are going to use this in order to make a checkout. I think we need to pass this later on to Wix Pay. Continues the payment. Purchasing a plan orders the plan and continues the payment process. Okay, so this should actually maybe happen automatically. Let's check it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this right over here from the top, the import, and I'm going to head back to our site and just put this right over here. So we're importing checkout, and we're going to be setting this up here inside of our onItemReady for the repeater. And this is going to happen when we click that Buy Now button. So .onClick, and we're setting up a callback function in here. So what we wanted to do was call checkout.startonlinepurchase, and it's flashing in red because it expects 1 to 2 arguments, but it got 0. So if I go back and get rid of this, if I go back here, then we see that this needs to take the plan ID. It can also take, let's see what else it can take, options, so start date and a coupon. Okay, so those are the other options that can be passed into this Start Online Purchase. We're going to go simple. We're just going to pass in the plan ID, which we can get from the data that we're passing to the repeater. So here we have the ID of the plan, and that is what we're going to need to pass in right over here. So this is going to be item data ID. Okay, and this will return a purchase order. Okay, So if I go over here and I'm going to use async await here. So this is slightly different than what you're seeing in the documentation, because in the documentation they use .then, but I'm going to be using async await, and I can do const order result equals await, and then what do here is console.log order result. Okay, and again, we might run into some issues here because this is a free Wix site, so we won't actually be able to move forward and pay, but we should see some kind of something, even if it's a failure message in our order result. So I'm going to go back into preview mode, and let's try clicking buy now for one of these. And let's check and see if I have any errors. I do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish, and I'm going to try this on the live site because some things that have to do with payments don't really work well in preview mode. So I'm going to go ahead back to view site, and I'm going to go to this custom plans page that I made, which might not have been called plan. Let's see what the URL is. Edit site, pages, plans, SEO. It's called blank. I want it to be called plans. And I'm going to publish and reload the page. So now we have, this is the live site with our plans. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over and just click buy now on one of these. Okay, so it's prompting me to sign up, which is what it said it would do in the documentation. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to log in just Google. Okay, so now I'm logged into the website and it pops up a modal. Thanks for your interest, but we're not accepting online payments at the moment. Okay, so this is what happens when you don't have a premium plan and you're trying to deal with Wix payments. But essentially, we managed to initiate the process of ordering this, paid pricing plan using Wix Code. Okay, if this was a premium site, what we would have here is that modal, which lets you put in your delivery address and your contact information and your payment information and make a payment. That's what would happen here. And if we take a look, we can just close this and then inspect this page. Take a look at the console here on the live site. And here we have our order result. And it's an object and it says, so we got an order back with all this nice information about the order. And it says canceled because I canceled the payment by closing the modal. Okay, so that is a very simple implementation of a custom paid pricing plan. And this is really dealing mostly with the front end part of this API. There was one more part of the front end API that we didn't really use. That was the create online order. And what this does essentially is it places an order for the plan without actually purchasing it, and then we can continue to process the payment with Wix Pay. Okay, so this start online purchase automatically goes to Wix Pay, and this one allows you to create an online order and not go directly to Wix Pay, possibly to allow you to maybe use your own kind of payment method here. Let's take a look at the code and see how this actually works. So you'd have the order button, you click create online order, and then it would be returned with an ID and a status. And then success, you created an order. And then in the next stage, I'm guessing it would go. This is one of the issues with the Velo API. Right over here. So this is really their full scenario, what we're kind of doing over here. And I want to see what we can do after we create the online order. Press current member orders. let's see, I want to see if we could just mark this order. Let's see, orders here on the back end. Get order, oh, mark as paid. Okay, so this is possibly something you can use kind of in tandem. So you would create an order in the front end, okay, using, to jump back and forth here, but you would you'd use this checkout, create online order, and then the order is created, but it's currently not marked as paid. And then you can go over here to the back end and mark it as paid if somebody initiates the payment using another service which isn't Wix Pay. So like, for example, you're connecting Stripe, you're connecting something like that. Let's test it out and actually try it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch out some of the code that I wrote here. So instead of start online purchase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, what was the other one? Create online order. Okay. And here we're going to log our order results. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a button here. So I'm going to add this button that says say hello. And this is going to be just for payment. Okay, so I'm going to click this when I actually want to mark the order as paid. And I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I can add this to the repeater so we can do this for each individual plan. So I'm going to put this over here. And really what I'm trying to do is simulate, I'm going to call it pay button. I'm trying to simulate a situation where you're using a third-party payment method without actually connecting something like that. So pressing this pay button will simulate a successful payment on a third-party payment platform. And basically, I'm assuming that any platform that you're creating a third-party payment with will send back some kind of indication that the payment was successful, and that's what this pay button is going to simulate. So what I'm going to do here, and a lot of this would probably be handled in the back end of the site, which is where we're going to also have to build out some of the code for this to work. So I'm going back to our plans module in the back end. And here I'm going to build the function which will mark the plan as paid. So I'm going to go right over here to our documentation. And here we have for the orders, sorry, the order, not mark the plan as paid, but the order. And here we have mark as paid. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the code that we have over here. And I'm going to paste it. So we're importing orders from Wix Pricing Plans backend. And then here we have an order ID, and we are going to mark it as paid. So I'm just going to call this mark order as paid. And this is actually async await, so good for them. They're actually kind of starting. This is the first time that I'm seeing async await inside of the Wix documentation. So maybe this is kind of a new thing that they're trying to put in over here. And this is a kind of dangerous function to export into your site because essentially, what if somebody kind of wanted to maliciously manipulate your orders, then they could essentially access this function, just put in an order ID, and their order would be marked as paid. So this is typically something that you'll want to handle mostly in the backend. So all of the information about the payment being complete and marking the order as paid, all of that would be handled in the backend. You wouldn't typically have this kind of communication between front end and backend. I'm really only doing it in order to be able to click that button and actually mark the order as paid. So I'm going to go back to, well, I'm going to copy over the name of this function because I tend to forget the names of functions as I'm moving from the back end to the front end. And I'm going to import it here on top as well as this get plans. And then I'm going to add, well, actually, this doesn't help because it needs to be the order specifically. Okay, so I'm backtracking here and I'm canceling the plan, the plan with the pay buttons here. And the reason I'm canceling it, just so you understand, is that after we create the order is really associated with this data in the repeater in any way. The data here is for the plans as opposed to the data for the orders. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to grab that order as soon as we create it on the front end, and then I'm going to pass it manually to the back end in order to mark it as paid, which is actually more lifelike, quote unquote. So forget about this. We're not importing this function here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go publish our site with our update here because we changed it to create online order. And I'm going to refresh the site over here. And then I'm going to click buy now here for test 2. And let's take a look here at our console. And we can see we got an order result. And here we just have the order. Okay, so we don't have the payment information because we didn't actually make any kind of payment. The type is online, and the last payment status is unpaid. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the ID of this order, which is right over here. I also see something here, which is a Wix Pay order ID, which is kind of starting to worry me, but we might need to take a look at that soon. But let's just try this out. So I'm going to go here to my backend, and I'm going to run this mark order as paid function in the backend. I'm going to just put the order ID right over here. And let me see what we're returning here. We're returning the order. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and click run. And forbidden. Interesting. Okay, so what I think might be happening here is that because this is an online order, it can't be marked in this way. So let's take a look at the documentation because the documentation usually will explain these kinds of things. Yeah, so it resolves a promise when the offline order is successfully marked as paid. Marking separate payment cycles as paid is not supported. Okay, so this will only work for an offline order. So how do we create an offline order? That is the question. Let's see. Orders. Let's see if there's a way here when we are creating the order. Checkout. So this is for create online order. Online order. So there's also a create offline order function. Okay, so let's try that. Create offline order. Let's go ahead and try using an offline order. So I'm going to go ahead to our front end, and I'm going to switch this out for create offline order. I don't know why it didn't come up with the, does not exist on the type checkout. Line order. Maybe that's something here in the pricing plans backend. Let's see. Orders. List order. Let's look for here. Create offline order. That is checkout. So it's on checkout in the backend. Okay, so that was confusing to me. So it's here in checkout in the backend where we have create offline order. And this creates an order for a buyer who purchased the plan with an offline transaction. So like somebody, gave you cash and you want to create an order for them. I'm not sure if this is the way you're supposed to handle another like third-party payment that's online. It could be that Wix has created another way to do that, and I'll take a look at that in a second, but this would definitely work in terms of handling third-party payment solution as well, because Wix doesn't really know if somebody paid you in cash or somebody paid you through, PayPal or through Stripe. Okay, they don't really know, and technically I don't see any reason that this wouldn't be exactly the same thing. So let's see how we would do this. So we would create the offline order in the back end. Okay, so we would have this here, create offline order, and we need to pass in the plan ID and a buyer ID. So what would be the buyer ID? Let's just take a look here, member ID for the buyer. Okay, so let's build out this function in the back end. So I'm going to go back to the back end of the site, plans, and we're going to create a new function. So export async, no, const create offline order offline. I just don't like to name the functions the same exact thing as the Wix API methods because then it starts getting a little confusing. So order offline. And here we're going to need to import checkout. And here we're going to need to take the plan ID and the buyer ID. And then here we have const order equals await checkout dot create offline order export const equals async. Excellent. And here we're going to pass in the plan ID and the buyer ID. And then we can just return order. Technically, we don't need to return it here. We could just kind of log it or something like that. But just for the sake of viewing it on the front end, I'm returning the order over here. So now I'm going to import this function here on the back end, on the front end, sorry. And here we're going to have order offline. And whoops, this needs to go over here. Yeah, that's why I got squiggly red. Okay, order offline. And then here, instead of creating order offline, what we're going to do is await our function. So here we're going to do order offline. And here we also need to get the member ID. We can do that by importing current member. So import current member from Wix members. And now I'm going to get the member over here. It's not best practice to get it every time you click the button. What I would probably do is just get the member once when the page loads. Okay, let me show you what I would do. So let's say, yeah, because there's no reason to fetch data multiple times if you don't need to. So let's say const member equals async function. And here I'm going to say let member, and oh no, I didn't close this. Let's see. Okay, and here I'm going to say just member equals await current member dot get member. Don't need this. Excellent. And I'm just going to call this function as soon as the page loads, check for member. And now this member variable should be equal to this member, assuming that we use it late enough. Okay, so there's additional things that I would add here to prevent a situation where, I'm trying to click the buy now button and the member hasn't loaded yet or something like that. But essentially, you only want to check for member once on the page because there's no reason to check for it every single time we press the button. And here I'm just going to pass in member.id. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and publish with the changes and wait for Wix to publish the site. Excellent. And go ahead and refresh. And I'm going to test 2. Oh no. Okay, so we have an error on the back end. I wonder what it is. I'm going to go to Developer Tools and click here on Site Events. And now we have our logs open, so I'm going to try again and see what it says. Forbidden was forbidden here now. Okay, interesting. I'm trying to think why it is forbidden and what I did wrong. Let's see what I did here. Checkout.createOffline theme, plan ID, buyer ID. See if there's any instructions here. Only site visitors with managed pricing plans and managed subscriptions permissions can create offline orders. You can override the permissions by setting the function suppress auth option to true. Okay, that is our answer. And really 99% of the times that I run into these kind of errors in the logs, it's just a matter of not having read the documentation in a detailed fashion. So always go back to the documentation and check the rules and see what's going on. And usually the answer is there. So let's pass in suppress auth here. And the fact that we're passing in suppress auth here and the fact that they put on this limitation does make me feel that we're definitely not using this in the way that Wix intended. They really intended for this to be a way for kind of like a site admin to go into their own kind of personal page. They're standing in front of a person who's waiting in line. They add the order for the person kind of in front of them, and then they get cash, and then they mark it as paid or something along those lines. So that's really kind of the situation I think Wix has in mind here. So I'm going to check after this to see if there is kind of if there's any specific instructions for how this is supposed to be handled with kind of a third-party payment solution. Again, what we're going to do now is going to work. So we could circumvent the permissions and still do it as we're doing it now. The questions are if there's any kind of like security issue here. I don't really see a security issue because we're only really creating an order. We're not going to be marking it paid through the front end. So worst case scenario, if somebody wants to hack your website, they can create orders that are unpaid. That would be kind of a worst case scenario that I can imagine. Again, not ideal, but doesn't seem like such a big deal to me, to be honest. And yeah, so okay, so I updated this with the suppress auth. I'm going to go and click publish. And let's try this again. Refreshing the live site. My plans have loaded, and I'm going to go ahead and click buy now. And yay, I got back an order result, so this was successful. And it is unpaid, which is what we expected. And the type is offline, which is good. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this ID over. And now I'm going to go to our backend and I'm going to run this mark order as paid function again. Okay, so this here, I'm going to just erase what we did before, and I'm going to pass in this new offline order ID and go ahead and click run. Uh-oh, and we got forbidden again. Okay, so what could be the issue now? As I said before, let's check the documentation. So I'm going to go ahead and go to orders, mark as paid. Do not trigger with emails. Okay, error occurs if you attempt to mark an online order as paid. Okay, note only visitors with the managed pricing plans and managed subscription permissions can mark offline orders as paid. I would think that I have those permissions because I created the website, but I'm just going to go on the off chance that, I don't know, for some reason I don't have this manage subscriptions permission at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and add the suppress auth for that as well. I'm going to go over here and add the suppress auth. And let's try that one more time. Yay! So it worked, and it returned object. Maybe I needed, no, I did awaited. Returned the object. Interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take a look at this order and see if it's marked as paid. So let's go ahead to our backend. Let's see if I can view the orders here at all. Subscriptions. Okay, so I have, yes, one paid offline subscription by myself as the customer. So that did work. Okay, here you could see it as paid offline. And let's just see what it would look like when it's paid, when it's not paid yet. So let's just go back to here. I'm going to get test one now. Okay, so we got the order in. And now let's take a look at our subscriptions. Go back and forth here. And I have an unpaid offline subscription. And I go ahead and I take the ID of this new order, copy it over here to the back end, switch out the IDs. And I have too many quotation marks. Get rid of this, run. Excellent. I was kind of expecting to get the order back in a visible way here. Maybe I have some other small issue, but either way, if I refresh this, then I have two paid offline subscriptions. Okay, so just to go through a flow of how I imagine this working with a third-party payment provider. Again, if it was offline, I explained before, third-party payment, so somebody kind of places their order over here, you send them to the third-party provider, and then wait for that kind of approval from that third-party provider to come back. Ideally, there's a way for you to listen for that using some kind of webhook, and you don't have to manage that through the front end of your website. And then just directly on the back end of your website, whenever you get that webhook, you can just mark the plan as paid. So that's kind of the flow that I'm imagining here. Let's just take a quick look and see if there's another way to handle a third-party payment situation that is more built out in terms of the API. So that would, start create online order. Theoretically, it would be linked somewhere here. Without actually purchasing, you can continue the payment process with Wix Pay, which applies the plan to the buyer. So that's really the option that they put over here. Let's see, ordering pricing plan. I don't see any specific instructions. Let's take a look at the introduction again. I don't see any specific instructions. Um, Start online purchase. Log that site corresponding event, go to create online order. The site member uses a series of customized created light boxes, forms to continue order purchasing. Site member uses Wix Pay to complete the purchase. So I don't see any specific instructions here for using another payment solution. So I'm pretty sure that the quote unquote hack that I just showed is how it would be done currently using the API. Happy to hear myself corrected in the comments, or if anybody from Wix happens to be watching this and wants to let me know of another option, please do. But from what I see, that is what we have, and it works. Again, assuming that you handle the marking as paid securely in the backend only, then you should not have any issues. Again, you should not have any security issues as long as you handle the paying part in the back. Yeah, cool. So that is in terms of kind of getting the pricing plans, displaying them in a custom manner on your website, and letting people order, both using Wix Pay and using offline or a third-party provider, etc.